Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Monday, guys. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. I have a special guest with me tonight. He's been here before. Everyone, please give a huge welcome to Ron Placone. Hi,
What's up,
Ron.
Sabby? Hey, how are you? Can you hear my fan, or is it like not coming through? Can you hear
I don't
it?
hear a fan.
You don't hear? Okay, cool. I have it on the lowest setting. We are I don't want to say it's like a heat wave. I mean, some parts of Southern California it is, but it's a little warmer than usual. So I try to keep my fan on low when I'm doing this stuff, and I'm hoping it's not bleeding through. I'm sure it's probably hotter where you're at, Massachusetts, but
We finally got over the heat wave. Finally broke. Yeah. So it's, it's still a little warm, but nothing like how it was like the past week, or actually the past 2 weeks. It was brutal.
Really? What did it cross?
We got almost into the hundreds.
Yikes. Yeah. Well, I was up in the Northwest where they have a heat wave there every year now. It's almost like something's going on with the climate or something. But they had a crazy heat wave when I was up there. And they still, those types of places, they're not really meant to deal with it. More people have AC now than they did some years ago, because now they're used to a heat wave every year, but it's still not. Man, I was sweating pretty fierce at our Vancouver show, and there was just nothing anyone could do about it. But anyway, good to be here. Glad the fan is not audible.
Awesome. So I want to talk to you about this story involving Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. So I sent you the link for this. Hillary Clinton, for those who are not aware, is writing a new book, or has a new book coming out. And she apparently has been telling people that there are some things in this book that she's saying about Bernie Sanders, about him not being nice to women.
So was
she quit?
Can I have a question? I thought it was, is it her book, or is it a book like some pundits putting out?
It says her in new book. Oh, new book. So it may not be her book per se, but it's a new book.
Okay.
I do want to show everyone. Let's go to that article, because I want to show everyone what this is about, where this is coming from. So this came out. Hillary Clinton calls Bernie Sanders sexist in new book. I know the kind of things he says about women. Now that's a quote coming from Hillary Clinton. Let's see. Oh, it's not scrolling on the screen. Let me, there it is. It's a little slow. Okay, here we go. Hillary Clinton has ripped her 2016 Democratic primary rival, socialist Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, as a male chauvinist in a new book, hinting darkly that I know the kind of things that he says about women. And to women, apparently, she's saying here as well. So it goes on to say the former Secretary of State's insinuation is including that the forthcoming book, Electable, by NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitali, which focuses on
that's whose book it is. It's this NBC person, Ali Vitali.
Yeah. So it focuses on the 2020 presidential campaign and the preponderance of female candidates who sought the Democratic presidential nomination that year. One of the subplots of the book, which was excerpted by Politico Friday, is the running drama between Sanders and his fellow left-winger Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, which climaxed in a hot mic moment during a January 2020 debate in Iowa. And so I'll show a clip of that in just a second. But back to this part here. in reference to what Hillary Clinton has said. Clinton, who was watching the altercation unfold, told Vitali, I believed her because I know Sanders and I know the kind of things that he says about women and to women. So I thought that she was telling an accurate version of the conversation they'd had. So, Ron, I want to get your opinion on this before I show everybody that cringe moment from the debates.
Why don't you show everybody the moment first? I need to mute my microphone and go scream into a pillow for 20 minutes, but I'll be right back. No, I mean, look, Hillary Clinton, she constantly, I mean, she is literally just a troll. Like that's what she is. And she will occasionally crawl out from under the bridge to grasp at any straw of relevancy she can grab. And usually it's this stuff. Usually it's rehashing stuff with Bernie Sanders because she hates Bernie Sanders, despite the fact that Bernie Sanders did more events for her than she did for herself in 2016. He did way more events for her than she did for Barack Obama. More Sanders supporters voted for her than Hillary supporters voted for Barack Obama. Let's keep in mind, when she lost to Barack Obama, she didn't do anything for him pretty much, and then insinuated he was going to get shot. That was Hillary losing gracefully in a primary. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders got cheated and did, I think, about 39 events for her, went to states she didn't even bother going. And of course, she still managed to lose, but he did more for her than she did for herself. Bernie Sanders didn't even want to run in 2016. He tried to talk Liz Warren into running, because he thinks a woman can't win. He wanted Liz Warren to run. She wouldn't run. So he ran because nobody else would. I mean, none of that adds up. I mean, and Bernie Sanders, I mean, he's been on the right side of all social issues. I mean, it's just grasping for straws. And it's so annoying when this comes back and it keeps coming back. They keep recycling this old stuff again, because look, Hillary Clinton wrote a book that failed miserably. Hillary Clinton did a speaking tour that failed miserably. Hillary Clinton has had multiple series on multiple networks. I think Hulu, and I think she had something on Netflix too, right? It all failed miserably. Hillary Clinton did a podcast. It failed miserably. Hillary Clinton's probably going to do a scripted series that will fail miserably. Hillary Clinton's going to start a TikTok account. It's going to fail miserably. Hillary Clinton will contaminate every medium and fail miserably at all of them. So she'll be like, Bernie's a bad guy, to get some attention. And sometimes I feel like, what if we just ignore her? Will she somehow go away? But the problem, Sabby, is she has such a big freaking megaphone that we can't ignore this stuff. We have to fight back, and we have to stand up to this stuff, because there's people in this country who don't support something like universal health care, not because they think it's a bad idea, but because they think Bernie's a sexist. So we have to combat this stuff. We don't have a freaking choice. But wow, am I tired of hearing this fucking record?
So she goes on to say, I wish she had done it on mic. I wish she had pushed back in front of everybody. I think it weakened her response that it was after the cameras were supposedly off and, they were just standing there. I think it's important that you call it out when it happens. And that was my only regret for her, that I wish she had just turned on him and said, it's one thing to mislead people about your healthcare plan. It's another thing to tell someone to her face that a conversation which happened didn't happen. I mean, that would have been, I think, a really important moment for her. Can you believe this?
Coming from Hillary Clinton, yes, I can. I mean, I've never, just no amount of self-awareness. The person who lost to Donald Trump is giving advice to anyone on how to conduct yourself throughout an election cycle. And by the way, I love how they describe Liz Warren as a leftist, just as an aside that I wanted to point to. Only in the United States would somebody be like, I'm a capitalist to my bones. And someone in the press would unironically be like, what a great leftist.
I know. It's really interesting to me, too, because sometimes they seem to forget, or they pretend to forget, that Elizabeth Warren was a Republican. And they don't mention that. They'll criticize Bernie Sanders more so instead, who was never a Republican. One more thing here that I think is important. It notes here, during both campaigns, Sanders was accused of stoking a subculture of young male supporters dubbed Bernie Bros, who bullied and harassed women who did not support his candidacy. And, I hate when I see things like this, Ron, because it pretty much excludes people like me, who was also a heavy supporter of Bernie Sanders. They made it seem like it was just a bunch of young guys that supported Bernie Sanders, and that wasn't true.
Absolutely. And also, this is another situation whenever they do finger pointing like this. And by the way, just as an aside here, there's plenty of valid criticisms about Bernie Sanders. I mean, there's plenty of valid reasons to criticize the guy, but this stuff ain't it. And we know that, this is nonsense. And, they're going to talk about online supporters and stuff like that. Hillary Clinton literally has a troll farm. She literally has a troll. Correct the record. That was her troll farm. That is definitionally what it was. It was her troll farm. Kamala Harris has a paid troll farm. They have actual troll farms. You know what Bernie Sanders had? People who supported his ideas. That's what he has. And there were a lot of them. They were filling up stadiums. And the DNC looked around and they said, we can't have this. We cannot have this. So we need to put a stop to this as quickly as we can.
Basically, yeah. I also said something else in reference to this on Twitter. I was telling people that, like, what does Bill Clinton say about women, Hillary?
She probably doesn't even know half the time.
No, it's hilarious to me. So I do want to play this clip here. Just a reminder to show everyone where this all came from. And this was during the 2020 debates with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren here. And this actually was going towards, I think, the end of the debates. In the beginning, obviously, Elizabeth Warren was saying that she backs Bernie and she supports Bernie Sanders. And then as it started to get closer towards the end and her poll numbers started to fall, then she decided to let me throw this in here. So here we go.
Let's now turn to an issue that's come up in the last 48 hours. Senator Sanders. CNN reported yesterday that, and Senator Warren confirmed in a statement, that in 2018, you told her that you did not believe that a woman could win the election. Why did you say that?
Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't say it. And I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on this because this is what Donald Trump and maybe some of the media want. Anybody knows me, knows that it's incomprehensible that I would think that a woman could not be president of the United States. Go to YouTube today. There's some video of me 30 years ago talking about how a woman could become president of the United States. In 2015, I deferred, in fact, to Senator Warren. There was a movement to draft Senator Warren to run for president. And you know what? I stayed back. Senator Warren decided not to run, and I did run afterwards. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes. How could anybody in a million years not believe that a woman could become president of the United States? And let me be very clear. If any of the women on this stage or any of the men on this stage win the nomination, I hope that's not the case. I hope it's me. But if they do, I will do everything in my power to make sure that they are elected in order to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of our country.
So, Senator,
I just want to add something in here, Ron. Did you notice that when the moderator was asking that question, she said, "Why did you say that?"
Yeah.
Instead of saying, did you say that?
Yeah. Oh, of course. It was totally leading. I mean, that was the case throughout all of 2020. It was every single person on that stage, pretty much, the media and the entire Democratic establishment versus Bernie Sanders. That's just what it was. They did everything they could. And Elizabeth Warren bailed out. It was like right around Super Tuesday. So she waited until the damage was done. Then they all just lined up behind Biden. And it was after they had tried to get their flavor of the week to catch on with people. I mean, first it was Kamala. They wanted everyone to get behind Kamala, and she couldn't even gain traction in her state because here in California, we remember shit that she actually did. So she couldn't even gain any traction in her state. Then they tried Warren. Didn't work. Then they tried Buttigieg. Didn't work. Then they tried Warren again. Didn't work. Then they tried Kamala again. Didn't work. So they said, okay, screw you guys. You're getting the crime bill guy, and he's going to pick the cop as his running mate. Have fun. We hate you.
Exactly. So she goes on here.
Senator Sanders, I do want to be clear here. You're saying that you never told Senator Warren that a woman could not win the election.
That is correct.
Senator Warren, what did you think when Senator Sanders told you a woman could not win the election?
I disagreed. Bernie is my friend, and I am not here to try to fight with Bernie. But look, this question about whether or not a woman can be president has been raised, and it's time for us to attack it head on. And I think the best way to talk about who can win is by looking at people's winning record. So, can a woman beat Donald Trump? Look at the men on this stage. Collectively, they have lost 10 elections. The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women, Amy and me. And the only
I think it froze there for a
person
second.
on this stage who has beaten an incumbent Republican anytime in the past 30 years is me. And here's what I know.
So this was another thing I noticed about Elizabeth Warren is that she really tried to play identity politics into this. And I think she thought like, this is the last like go at it I have like to really try to turn things around in reference to the polls. So now I'm going to throw in this trick and try to say that Bernie Sanders made sexist comments about women.
Yeah, I agree. And if you notice, she deflected away from that question, that specific question about did Bernie say this? She got off of that right away and all of a sudden pivoted to the whole question of whether a woman can be president has been raised and it's time to put that out. Well, that's true, but that's not, you were asked, did Bernie say this? And you really just kind of skated around it and changed the subject. That doesn't strike me as somebody who's telling the truth. I mean, if you were in those shoes, how would you respond? If we had dinner, Sabby, and I made a statement, and I very clearly made it to you, you remember me making it, and it was like Cambridge has the best lobster. And then me and you were up in a debate because we're both running for city council somewhere in Wellfleet. And you know that, oh, my lobster comment could bury my frickin' campaign. And they asked me on the spot, they're like, Ron, did you say that Cambridge has the best lobster? Did you say that to Sabby? She told the press this week that you said that. And I'm saying, I did not say that. Would you immediately pivot away from it when you were asked, or would you say, motherfucker said it? He was sitting at my table. I made pasta for dinner. My husband was there too. We heard him frickin' say it. We didn't record it because we're not creepy pants recording our friends at dinner. But Ron, you were sitting right there. I remember it. You said it. What would you do?
Right. Honestly, I would sound that way, actually. The way you just
I would expect you to. I would want you. You should sound that. Anyone should sound that way because it's the truth.
Yeah. This was a cringe moment for her. Another thing I want to add too, why did she wait like the entire time during like the Democratic primary debates? Why didn't Elizabeth Warren bring this up earlier on? Why did she wait until it got this close towards the end? And now all of a sudden, oh, by the way, we had this conversation one time and Bernie Sanders said this. Because at the very beginning of the primary debates, Elizabeth Warren was saying that she agrees with Bernie. She said that over and over multiple times. And then she tried to throw this in at the last minute.
Well, I think that strategically what she was trying to do there was, she knew that Bernie Sanders' policies were overwhelmingly popular. So she's going to try to latch onto those. And then she's going to try to pivot herself by being like, oh, but he's kind of a sexist and I'm not. So go for all the great policies, but the not sexist, which, is absolute nonsense. But that's what she was trying to do. And at the end of the day, they were all able to just take just enough away that, they shoved Joe Biden down all of our throats. Yay.
Right. Right.
The real danger that we face as Democrats is picking a candidate who can't pull our party together or someone who takes for granted big parts of the Democratic constituency. We need a candidate who will excite all parts of the Democratic Party, bring everyone in, and give everyone a Democrat to believe in. That's my plan, and that is why I'm going to win.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar, what do you say to
Thank
people
you, Elizabeth.
who don't? Senator Klobuchar, what do you say?
Yeah, so again, like she did not answer the question.
Mhm.
And then I think it goes into Amy. Okay, here's this section here I wanted to play. Yeah, this part here.
Senator Sanders, you can respond.
Well, just to set the record straight, I defeated an incumbent Republican running for Congress.
When?
1990. That's how I won, beat a Republican congressman. Number two, of course, I don't think there's any debate up here.
Wasn't it 30 years ago?
I beat an incumbent Republican congressman.
And I said I was the only one who's beaten an incumbent Republican in 30 years.
Well, 30 years ago was 1990, as a matter of fact. But I don't know that that's the major issue of the day. I think what the major issue of the day is, does anybody in their right mind think that a woman cannot be elected president? That's enough. Nobody believes that. If Hillary Clinton got 3 million votes, more votes than Trump. So who believes that a woman can't win? Of course a woman can win. But the real question is, how do we beat Trump? And the only way we beat Trump is by a campaign of energy and excitement, and a campaign that has by far the largest voter turnout in the history of this country. And I believe that our campaign has the strongest grassroots movement.
Thank
we
you.
have been endorsed by many grassroots
Senator Warren,
organizations.
Senator
That's why
Warren,
we
I
win.
want to give you the final.
So now this is when the moderator comes in and tries to cut him off, basically.
Yeah, I'm gonna accuse him of saying something. He's saying he didn't say it. Like it's like, but Liz Warren, you get the final say. I'm gonna just assume he said it. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, revisiting this stuff is, it still hurts. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel? Like, it still freaking hurts.
It's painful. Like,
it's
watching this again,
painful.
because yeah, like you can see exactly how they were, even during the debates, they were trying to screw over Bernie Sanders. I don't know how some people didn't see this.
It was, I mean, yeah, it was just so obvious. And I mean, I still remember when Bernie dropped out. I still remember, you know, when Biden was the nominee, and just really being like, wow, this is, because look, there's plenty of reasons to criticize Bernie. There's plenty of things he's done that's ticked me off. He's even done a couple things recently that I was not thrilled about. But I mean, I don't know when we'll have another chance at any kind of, you know, transformational type presidency. We might not get another chance in our lifetimes. That's just the reality of it. We've had nothing but Reagan for 40 years.
Yep.
40 years. And I don't see that ending anytime soon. I really don't. I mean, I don't know exactly what they're going to put up in 24, but I'm not excited about any of the prospects. That's for sure. And I think that whoever it is, I mean, there's a good chance Ron DeSantis will be the next president. And that guy is a very special brand of dangerous.
Yep. I mean, this is the direction we're heading in. So she's going to answer, I think, the last question here.
So I do think it's the right question. How do we beat Trump? And here's the thing. Since Donald Trump was elected, women candidates have outperformed men candidates in competitive races. And in 2018, we took back the House, we took back state houses because of women candidates and women voters.
I just want to add in here, this is exactly why the Democrats are losing the American people and losing working class people. Because again, what does this have to do? Why does she have to bring in the whole women part to the conversation? Just say, like, if you guys are winning, just say you were winning. But again, she's trying to make it about identity politics. And this is exactly what the Democratic Party does. It's really frustrating. And I think maybe they do realize this and they just don't say it, Ron. But I feel like they don't understand that this is not what attracts a lot of people to come out and vote for you. Not anymore these days. That's why the majority of people don't even vote.
No kidding, right? I mean, it's like over half the country doesn't freaking vote. And I mean, I know there was that poll that came out that it was featured in a Rage Against the Machine video where they were just like half the country doesn't vote because they just don't really feel like there's an option on the ballot. And, and so this sort of stuff is really all they have to hang their hat on. And I mean, getting back to this clip specifically, I don't know how you feel, but I felt like she sounded painfully scripted. That this was just a talking point that was handed to her. They cooked this whole thing up to say, oh, say that Bernie said this. I don't believe for a second that it actually happened. I can't say for sure. I wasn't there, but I don't believe for a second it actually happened. They cooked this whole thing up to give her these talking points and to see if she caught, basically. And once again, she didn't catch. I mean, the DNC tried so hard to shove these mediocre, and using the word mediocre as being far too generous, but we'll go with mediocre to be polite. These mediocre candidates, they tried so hard to shove so many of them down our throats. None of them worked. Yep. So they just got everybody in line. I mean, the DNC is just such a repulsive organization. And this is what you get when Wall Street owns both parties. I mean, the Republicans, they don't have to play pretend because it's like they're for the rich and they're for the people with power. They make no qualms about it. So they're just straight up in your face neo-fascist. The Democrats are putting on the facade that they're for the working class. So they need more bridges like super delegates and the DNC and all these other bullshit things. They make up this. I mean, whenever you hear someone try to justify super delegates, it is the most condescending, cringe thing I've ever freaking heard. They basically say to your face, they're just like, well, we ran McGovern and it didn't work so well. So we, the people, our brains are too tiny to pick a decent candidate. So we need these super delegates to help our tiny minds. How freaking warped are you? You bought that bullshit? You bought that absolute bullshit they sold you. And by the way, the super delegates put up someone who lost to a fucking game show host. So even your hogwash theory frickin' sucks.
That's right. So I'm going to finish her out here.
Look, don't deny that the question is there. Back in the 1960s, people asked, could a Catholic win? Back in 2008, people asked if an African American could win. In both times, the Democratic Party stepped up and said yes, got behind their candidate, and we changed America. That's who we are.
So it's frustrating to me, Ron, because I'm just like, Bernie Sanders, he let them do it. He let them do it, and then he went along with the Democratic Party in the end anyway, and he's still going along with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, well, even the IRA bill. I mean, look, Bernie was the only one who tried to put some good stuff in there. Okay. But then he voted for it anyway when they refused all of his amendments. He's not willing to buck the party the way someone like a Joe Manchin is. And they know that. They know that. So, it really sucks. I mean, it really sucks. Like we need somebody who's willing to just buck the party the way a Joe Manchin is. And I realize it's an imperfect comparison because, look, Joe Manchin, I mean, people make it out like Joe Manchin's some rogue actor. That's not entirely true because Joe Manchin has actually most of the Democrats and all the Republicans behind all of his ideas. Bernie Sanders doesn't have that. That's just, the way it goes. But still, Bernie Sanders has regular people behind him. Like most people, those are the types of things that they want. Most people would have wanted to see more investment in public infrastructure in that. Well, I shouldn't say more, any investment in public infrastructure in that bill. They would have wanted to see, some of the stuff that he put in there to curb fossil fuels, which failed. And now it's like, what, 620 million acres that's like up for grabs for the fossil fuel industry in a climate bill. Interesting. I mean, we're at the Orwell stage of, I'm looking forward to the War is Peace bill. Oh wait, we've had those for a lot of years too. But so yeah, I mean, it's a really, really horrible situation when you break it down. And I think the only solution, I mean, the solution doesn't lie in the ballot box. The solution lies, in my opinion, only in a general strike. I mean, I don't see how there's any other way out of this thing. And people say, well, that's really hard to do. Yeah, but what's the alternative? I know that's really hard to do. I don't know how to do it either. Like, I don't know. I can't, I get emails from some people. They're just like, I'm going to help you put on this general strike you're trying to organize. I'm like, dude, I'm a freaking dude on I'm a comedian. I don't know how to lead such a thing. I don't think any one person does. I mean, it's going to take a hell of a lot of coordinating between a lot of people and a lot of organizations. But it's not impossible. They pull it off in other countries. Now, in other countries, they don't have all the same hurdles we do all the time. They strike a lot in countries where your healthcare is not tied to your job. That's not a coincidence. They strike a lot in other countries where most workers aren't a paycheck or two from going under. It's not a coincidence. It's a lot harder here in the United States, and that's by design. But it's not impossible. So, I mean, I think it's just, unless we really just shut it down in a way where the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks of the world really feel it, and they feel it in their pocketbook. Because let's be honest, we all know who's really running it. I mean, the oligarchs really run this place. We know it.
Yep.
So unless they go and they say, hey, this is not okay. We're not happy. You got to do something. Nothing's going to change. I mean, that's how we got the New Deal the first time. We got the New Deal because FDR, I mean, he had enough foresight to realize, those people are pissed out there, and I'm not going to be able to control them. So, rich friends, you can either give up a little bit or you can give up everything. Your choice. And they were like, well, we'll just give up a little bit. We need something like that to happen again. The only difference that I want this time, the big difference I want, is instead of putting a Band-Aid on capitalism, I want to pivot away from capitalism entirely and start a society that is just based on human needs and being stewards to the earth. Is there a name for that? Yes, there is. It's called eco-socialism. There's literally a name for it. It's literally on the platform of the Green Party and other lefty parties as well. So I feel like we got a roadmap at least. Got to start somewhere.
I agree. All right, Ron, I have one more question for you because I want to be mindful of your time. But in reference to the Green Party or third party or independent candidate for 2024, how do you feel about that?
Oh, wow.
Put on the spot, Ron.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't think of one person or any entity I would want to see run as far as who do I think is a real contender. I mean, the thing with any third party candidate is, can they get that 5% tile? That's why in 2020, I mean, I was kind of hoping Jesse Ventura was going to get the nod from the Greens because I thought he had the best chance of getting 5% out of anyone they were thinking about running. And then, I don't know all that went down in that primary or what exactly transpired there administratively, but he did not get the nod, and Howie Hawkins got less than they got in 2016, which was very disappointing. So I will likely vote third party. I mean, I've been voting third party the past two elections. I mean, I voted for Jill Stein and I voted for Howie Hawkins in 2020. But so I'll likely vote for whoever the Green is. Because, I mean, usually it's the Greens, they have the most ballot access. So mathematically, they're usually the only third party that even has a chance at getting that 5%. Other than libertarians, and I just don't really agree with libertarians, politically. I mean, I'm much more aligned with the Green Party politically. So yeah, I mean, I'll probably vote for the Green. As far as who's somebody who could get 5%, who's somebody, I mean, I have no clue. And I will say this, as far as, will there be a Democrat who's going to challenge Biden or whoever they shove down our throats should Biden not run? I think the only way something like that would happen is if it was somebody from the outside, somebody like a Marianne Williamson. I don't know if it's going to be her or not. I have no idea, but somebody like that, somebody who's not, not
already in,
who's not holding office. That's the only way I see any type of challenge to, the Biden stronghold, even if it's not Biden himself. I mean, Biden has said he's not going to seek, he has said it various times he wasn't going to seek re-election. Now it seems like he's changing his tune on that, and he's saying he probably will seek re-election. So yeah, I have no idea as far as 2024 goes, like who might get that nod. I just hope that some third party gets to 5%. And in the meantime, we got to keep fighting to change the way our electoral system works, because, it's by design that third parties aren't viable.
That's right.
To make third parties viable, you need things like ranked choice voting. You need to get money out of politics. You need to just kind of change the way the game is played to be able to actually compete with these two Wall Street sponsored parties. That's why, again, I'll tip my hat to the Greens, because the Greens are actually pursuing those things in the formal sense. Like they're pursuing ranked choice voting initiatives in various states. So I do applaud them for doing that. That's very important work. That's not to say the Green Party is perfect or beyond criticism. There's certainly things they've done that I've not been in agreement with, just like any other party or organization. But I do appreciate that they that they're really going to the mat for ranked choice voting.
Yeah, Andrew Yang's Forward Party is also tackling that too. Ranked choice.
They
voting.
are they?
Yeah, that's like their big.
I'm not a fan.
But started on Forward Party because
why not? You brought it up. We've started.
I know because like Andrew Yang, and I saw another interview earlier this morning with him, and they were asking questions.
Was it the CNN one?
Yes,
that was so bad. I'm sorry. That sounded like he was auditioning to be the next Tom Perez. Like they're just like, what do you stand for? Name something you stand for. And he was like, well, common sense. Like, what?
I know. No,
it's
I
the
talked
party
to
without policies.
He's not explaining it well. And like I talked to Kim Iverson recently.
That's generous. He's not explaining it well.
I know. Yeah, the best person to talk to about this is Kim Iverson. I'm just telling you hands down, because she's on the board. And when she was on, she explained it in so much more detail. And I said, oh, it all makes sense now. So Kim was saying it actually should be called a caucus, not a political party. Because
they're going to try to run people?
Well, basically, like they're trying to get all the obstacles out of the way that third parties have in the first place. So like the ranked choice voting, all that stuff. And then maybe someone can run through the Forward Party. So when Andrew Yang says you can run as a Democrat or a Republican, or you can be a Democrat or Republican and be under the Forward Party, that's because it's more like a caucus instead of a political party. See, I'm telling you, like I think that she should be the face for this. I'm sorry, but like she really breaks it down. So she explained to me why there's no policies. Andrew Yang cannot answer that question. I'm watching him do multiple interviews.
He couldn't answer any question. I mean, that was freaking. I mean, first of all, and let's be totally fair here. I really wish we lived in a world where CNN held the same scrutiny level for Democrats and Republicans. I really wish we live in that world, just to be fair here. But I mean, when you make Jim Acosta look like a hard-hitting journalist, holy shit, he was just like, well, abortion, which, well, again, common sense. Guns, how about you have to take a stand on something? He called it a fill-in-the-blank party, which was fair. So, yeah, I can't say, I don't think you'll see me having anything favorable to say about the Forward Party anytime soon. But who knows? I mean, I support ranked choice voting and stuff like that. So if they do too, that's something that we can all work together on. I'm one of these people that I think that it's a good thing when people find common causes that they can kind of get together on. I mean, I'm a big municipal broadband guy, And that's a cause that you will see people on the left supporting. You will see people on the right supporting. You will see people in between supporting, because everyone who's experienced it knows how freaking good it is. And we all want our internet to be something we can depend on. So,
Yes.
I'm all about finding causes to get together on and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I saw that same clip and I was just like, wow. and I mean, there's a guy too, where it's like, I mean, when he first launched his website to run for mayor, and I don't remember all the details about it because it was a while ago, but I remember looking at his actual recovery plan for New York, and I thought, well, this makes sense as a recovery plan. I think this would work in a city like New York, like the way he was going to, like distribute the resources and stuff. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And I tweeted about it and I'm like, this guy has some interesting plans as a mayor here. And then, the rest of his campaign was, I love cops. They're so sexy. I love cops. And I was like, God damn it. So I had to eat that tweet. But Andrew Yang, I'm not a fan. But
yeah, he's oh man, he's cracking me up. I don't know where Andrew's going. But Ron, before you go, well, first of all, thanks so much for coming on to hang out. And before you go, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'll mention a couple things if you don't mind. I have a fun show coming up in Los Angeles in the San Pedro neighborhood where I live. For 10 years now. You might like this, Sabby, because we're both recovering academics. I've wanted to write a historical interpretation of the satirist Lucian, who was a satirist that existed. He basically was the era in between the ancient Greeks and the Renaissance, which is a very long era. But he was rediscovered in the Renaissance, and he inspired a lot of the satirical writers of that day, because they rediscovered his work and they really liked it and blah, blah, blah. I would make the argument in many ways he was kind of like the first comedian known to human history. I mean, people were doing satire and parody for a really long time before he came around, but he was the first person who literally traveled doing humorous speeches. And then he wrote pamphlets and books and stuff later. So he was basically doing stand-up before there was such a thing. So I think, I don't know, it is as nerdy as it sounds. But I wrote a historical interpretation about the guy, and I'm going to premiere it September 10th in my neighborhood, a place called The Corner Store at 2 p.m. It's an afternoon show because I'm going to try to pitch it to Renaissance Festival. So I'm doing a free show. It's outdoors. It'll be costumed and everything because, again, we're going for a Renaissance fair type theme. So it's a free show. You can check it out. It's going to be a fun time. There's music. There's historic interpretation. And it's a fun show. It's an accessible show. You don't need to know anything about this guy to enjoy the show. But that's happening September 10th at the Corner Store in the San Pedro neighborhood in Los Angeles. You can come to my show at 2, be at the beach by 3. It'll be a fuck of an afternoon. So come hang out. It's free. And then hopefully I'll be bringing that to some Renaissance fairs across the country in 2023. And I'll be announcing some 2023 stand-up dates soon. I'll be going to the UK. I'll probably be going to Iceland because I had to postpone my Iceland dates this year. And I'll probably be doing some domestic stuff as well. You can follow all that stuff at Ron Placone. I'm on Twitter at Ron Placone. Ron Placone on all the socials, but I'm most active on Twitter, YouTube, Ron Placone. And thanks for having me. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. Always enjoy chatting with you. Did Sabby freeze? I think Sabby froze. Am I the only one not hearing anything? All right, I guess it's my show now. Hey, Sabby. Eric, go away. Don't fuck this for me, Eric. This is my big moment. The president of the show business is watching. You're ruining my life. Eric. No, I'm sorry. You're probably kind of nervous. Just, all right.
I got a text from Sabby.
Did it froze, right?
Yeah, she's been having internet trouble.
Or she was just like, Ron started talking about these historic interpretations, and I had flashbacks to my horrible time in academia. Ron,
Sorry.
I thought you might have just quit in the middle of everything. I was just like, it's a historical interpretation, and you were just like, fuck this, I'm out. Shut up, Ron. And
No, I had Wi-Fi issues, but I thought I was on mobile hotspot, but it turns out I wasn't, but I'm back now. Sorry, but I did hear
Ouch.
what you said.
So I'm sorry. CPC was like, you talked her to death. Look, I'm sorry. I've been thinking about doing this project for 10 years, and I've put it off for 10 years, and I finally got around to writing it. So I kind of geeked out about it. So I'm sorry if that plug was like way too long. I apologize. I will work on it in the future. But I am really excited about it. If you guys are in the Los Angeles area, I hope you'll come check it out and give it a shot. And yeah, thank you very much.
All right, awesome. But where can people find you?
Find me at Ron Placone on Twitter, at Ron Placone on Instagram, YouTube Ron Placone. I pointed the wrong direction. YouTube Ron Placone. I'm just Ron Placone on all the platforms, and ronplacone.com for tour dates and all that fun stuff. And by the way, someone did mention this in the chat. This is why we need municipal broadband. This is why. Although I think that they have it near you. I think Cambridge is either working on it or they have it. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I have a actual different issue. There's branches on top of the line. So we actually have someone coming out this week to give us a quote to take a whole tree down. I'll tell you about that later though, Ron.
All right. Fair enough. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Ron.
Oh, I see.
I think Ron froze this time.
Did I freeze? Because I can hear you.
Oh, he's back. I lost you.
Okay. I couldn't hear. I could hear you, but I couldn't see you. And then it was like, yeah, I think you're frozen now. Is Sabby frozen, chat? I think
Sabby again.
Eric. All right, Eric. All right.
What are we going to talk about now, Ron?
Well, I mean, Eric, how was your weekend? Let's start basic.
Oh, pretty good. I actually went to a Red Sox game.
Oh, I can see myself just fine.
Oh. Okay. So can you see us?
I can't see you. You're frozen.
Oh, let me come back in.
Yeah.
How did the Red Sox do, Eric?
They won. They beat the Yankees.
Oh, nice. Well, I know that's good. I know those are big rivals, and I don't know much about baseball, but I know the Red Sox are the working class team, and the Yankees they're the team for the bourgeoisie, right? Isn't that the baseball thing?
Yeah, well, we just hate them around here. It doesn't really matter why. It's
fair enough. Are you? I mean, I can talk hockey. Are you a Bruins guy?
I've gotten into the Bruins when they like are winning championships.
I'll take that as a no, Eric. I'll take it. If they're good, I give a fuck, but otherwise, no.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, I could take that. I could accept that. I'm a Bruins fan by marriage. My wife is from Massachusetts.
Oh.
She played hockey, so the Penguins are still my team. But if the Penguins are not in it, I will root for the Bruins second, for my wife and her family. Otherwise, I can't say my second choice. But that's how it goes. So.
Cool.
Sabby, you're back with us.
All right, looks like you're back for the moment. I'll give it back.
Sabby,
up to
what
you.
do you think of the Bruins? Please tell us and then freeze right away. But
I don't say anything about them in the beginning of the season because I found when I do that in the past, it's almost like I jinx them or whatever. I'm that way. I'm kind of superstitious when it comes to sports.
I kind of am that way too. I try not to. Yeah, I try not to talk trash. Well, thank you so much for having me, and always a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye, Ron.
All right. See you later. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. Let's do this thing, you guys. Let's do this. All right. Quick and foremost, I do want to go ahead and I think it's because I have also these tabs open, which I got to close in a second. Quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. All of their names are listed here. If you are interested and want to be a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabby, Absters, Sabinators, and of course the ultimate. All of their names are here and they're scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well on the ticker. And I also want to give a quick shout out to new Sabby patrons. These are the newbies: Sudesh Prasad, M.E. Lotberg, and Ed Denigan. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate it. Go ahead and close that. And let's go ahead and show my thumbnail so we can see what else I'm going to be talking about tonight. So We have a couple more stories here, then I'll get to the super chats I saw as well. All right, tonight I am going to discuss Max Blumenthal blast elites. That was a really interesting discussion he had on RJ Eskel's show. I'm also going to discuss Richard Wolff, Scolds CEO. And of course, Ron Placone was just here, and we just talked about Hillary Clinton smears Bernie Sanders. So let's go ahead and get into that. Now, quick shout out to these individuals. Thank you so much for the super chat. JY says, conservative here. Just saw Jimmy Dore's video on your reaction to Nina Turner's Twitter spat with Jimmy about the FBI. We are in desperate need of more content creators like yourself. Thank you so much for that super chat. Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's see. Eric, I think I'm going to have to because I am still on mobile hotspot, but I can tell. Okay, it's fine now. Thank you for the super chat, Val. Saw you on Jimmy Dore. Your passion brought me to tears. Please keep up the United message. New fan here. Thank you. And shout out to you as well. Okay. Shout out to Pachico Roan, who just became a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Thank you so much for that. And shout out to Boeing 757 pilot. Thanks for the super chat. Good interview. Somewhat new to your channel. Thank you so much and welcome. Welcome. Okay, guys, I'm just going to make sure I have everything closed out. Just a second. And I do believe I do. Cool. All right. I want to get into this next story here. Eric, you're going to have to, or maybe not. We'll see if type VNC works. Okay, it does work. Oh. Let me log in one more time. Okay, yeah, I was on the wrong one. Yeah, Eric, I don't think the tight VNC is not going to work. I don't think because of the connection. So I'm going to either have to log back in or I'm going to have to Eric, I don't know if you're there or not, if you can hear me. Yeah, in order for me to do tight VNC, I'm going to have to leave and come back in.
From the StreamYard?
Yeah, I have to exit StreamYard and I have to come back in because I have to reconnect to do tight VNC.
Oh, you mean you're going to do your internet connection?
Right. But I have to leave the studio to do that because I'm wired. To be wired, I have to go out and come back in.
Oh, so you're going to try going back to the regular internet?
Yes, because I can't do StreamYard. That's what I can't do that because it's messing with the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Well, let's see if we got any good chats here. Oh, I saw we had a couple of paid comments on the old rock fins. Let's take a look at those. We got this one from JVB saying, thanks, Sabby. Thanks for that tip comment. And we had one from Dave Burt. Thanks for this. Thanks, Sabby, and good to bring on Ron Placone. We can head toward the movement Ron suggests, I think. Just national level coordination will be hard. And thanks for that, Dave Burt.
Okay.
All
Alrighty.
right.
So I'm back on the regular one now.
All right. Go.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and get into this story here. Now, this is about Whole Foods CEO. I'm not sure if everyone has been paying attention to this, but the CEO of Whole Foods has come out recently with some sketchy statements here about workers, about capitalism that I think all of you should hear. Now, shout out to Case Study QB because he clipped this. Case Study's always doing great work. He has a clip here from Fox Business that says outgoing Whole Foods CEO feels like socialists are trying to take over. So this is an interesting discussion, you guys. I'm sorry, but we have to go there because Richard Wolff actually debated him a while back on Intelligence Squared, and I'm going to show you that clip as well. But first, let's get into this one. I want you to hear what it's really about for some of these CEOs, that it's not really about socialism. It's more so about them being afraid that they're going to lose some of their wealth. Listen to this discussion.
I feel like socialists are taking over. They're marching through the institutions. They're taking everything over. Taking over education. It looks like they've taken over a lot of the corporations. It looks like they've taken over the military, and it's just continuing. Yeah. I'm deeply concerned, and I believe in liberty and capitalism. Those are my twin values.
Okay, let's look at this for a second. He said, I feel like socialists are taking over. They're marching through the institutions. They're taking everything over. They've taken over education. Okay, let's pause right there. If we've taken over education, then we would have education, fair education for everybody. We don't have that. We don't have free public college in the United States. We don't even have free community college. But you see how they can just put out these talking points and people will just buy into it. He says the socialists are taking over, ladies and gentlemen. We're taking over it's just coming there's a huge takeover happening. Are you kidding me? We still live in a capitalist country. We still live in a country where there's huge wealth inequality. I know in my state, the wealth gap in Massachusetts is huge. So what is he talking about? And why does he even care? He's rich. Even people like him who are filthy rich still don't even want to give even a little bit more if they're asked to. Let's go back in.
That was outgoing Whole Foods CEO John Mackey pushing back on the socialist takeover he sees plaguing American corporations. Mackey also saying that he wonders if conscious capitalism has helped push some companies toward extreme policies, such as adopting environmental, social, and government trends. Dagan, this is the issue right now with this administration pushing through their ESG climate change agenda, and it's led by the socialists.
He came up, he wrote a book called Conscious Capitalism and used frequently the phrase stakeholders when we're referring to all of the people who are kind of have stakes in a company that you run rather than just shareholders or the owners. So John Mackey has always been this person. He was called in the New Yorker years ago a right-wing hippie, but he is a libertarian through and through. He was opposed to the Obamacare subsidies. He has questioned some climate science. So I think the people who shop there don't really understand and never have his ethos and his beliefs about capitalism and the role of entrepreneurs in this country.
She said she believes the people that shop at Whole Foods don't understand his vision per se. First of all, let's find out, who are the people that shop at Whole Foods? Do you think poor people are shopping at Whole Foods? What about people who are working class? I've been to Whole Foods a couple of times, and I'll tell you, the only time I went to Whole Foods was to get like fruits and vegetables, not anything else because it's too expensive. So who are the people that are shopping at Whole Foods? That's a certain class of people. Let's go on.
But I said on Gutfeld last night, his stores in these deep blue cities like New York have done more to foment socialism because you have these people who are working behind the register, working hard, having to deal with rich liberals who are quite frankly bossy, nasty, and poor tippers. So that would make me want some kind of wealth redistribution too if I had to work at a Whole Foods. And
Does she have a point about that? Does she have a point about wealthy liberals shopping at Whole Foods? I can only tell you from where I live. Like I said before, I don't see poor people or many working class people shopping at Whole Foods. I'm just going to tell you right now. But typically here in Massachusetts, in the eastern part of Massachusetts, the Boston, Cambridge area, there's a certain group of people who shop there. Number one, people who have the money to do so. That's first and foremost, the money to do so. But number two, I also want to add, let's not pretend that Whole Foods is only in deep blue areas or in liberal areas. That's not true. You have Whole Foods in conservative and deep red areas as well. It's not just only exist in certain places in the country. But like I said, again, I feel like they're making this more of a left-right thing when we actually should be talking about a certain class. Because that's what it's about. Whole Foods is expensive. So regardless if you're on the left or the right, if you're poor, can you afford to shop at Whole Foods? Let's go back in.
Deal with condescending big money liberals every day, which is exactly what it's like.
Lo, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect here to Mr. Mackey. I mean, he's a just phenomenally successful businessman, but you got to wake up. You hired and inspired most of the people you're bemoaning right now, so you've contributed to that, as Dagan has said. And what I do applaud him for, though, he is talking out about, look, this woke culture that wants to work in something that makes them passionate right out of the gate is something they need to just get over. I mean, all of us know that have come up working hard. I wasn't passionate about pumping gas in New Jersey. Work is work to get out of it, and to be entitled is just something that just needs to be eradicated from the younger cultures and have.
What's wrong about having a job that you're actually passionate about? What's wrong with that? How many people want to work at a miserable job? What's wrong with that? Why can't people have those jobs that they're passionate about? I don't think that's a bad request. I'm sorry, but especially if you spent all that time going to college, going to school for a certain field, do you not deserve the right to have some type of passion in that field you're going into? No, guys, don't have that passion. Don't expect that. You're just supposed to do whatever's given to you and be happy. This is part of the reason, in my opinion, why you have so many people in the United States right now dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, and there are biological, there's brain chemistry involved in that as well. But part of this also has to do with the fact that you have a lot of people that are not happy because they are not feeling fulfilled, because they are working jobs that make them miserable, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They're spending more time at work than they're spending at home with their families. And then you add on top of that, it's not even a job that you like, but you're just supposed to take what's given to you and be happy. I don't think so. I think that in a country as wealthy as the United States, I believe that we can afford to let people here have jobs that they're actually passionate about. That's my take. Let's go back in. This is just hilarious, though.
Them understand that you got to earn and live and work towards your passions to get those opportunities. You shouldn't just be given anything.
I encourage people to listen to the podcast. It's with Reason magazine, a libertarian magazine, because one of the things that was.
Let's go back to this part here, because I think this is a misunderstanding about the younger generations. Listen to this.
And have them understand that you got to earn and live and work towards your passions to get those opportunities. You shouldn't just be given anything.
When he says you shouldn't just be given anything, I think that's a misunderstanding. Again, I told you guys my students were Gen Z. They don't want to be given anything. They're not saying they don't want to work. They're not saying they don't want to earn their way there. But I hear that oftentimes, whether it's on Fox News, I hear it on CNN too. I hear it on MSNBC as well. They have this perception that because people are asking for a job that they feel passionate about, because people want to make a living wage so that they can live in this country, they have this perception that the younger people just want to be given these things, that we just want everything just to be handed to us. And I don't think that that's true, not from what I've seen. But people do want to make a living wage. People do want to be able to pay their rent and not have to struggle. People do want to be able to not have to have roommates until they're 35 years old. And yes, I know people still dealing with that. People do want to be able to make enough money so that one day they could buy a house, or one day they could get married, or one day they could start a family. But the way things have been going the past couple of years, I don't see that happening. And part of it has to do with the fact that they're not being paid what they should be paid, especially when you include inflation. So I have to debunk that because I'm sorry, that is a big misconception about the younger groups. So I don't agree with that.
I encourage people to listen to the podcast. It's with Reason magazine, a libertarian magazine, because one of the things that it seems like was really a tipping point for John Mackey, and he's leaving. He sold the company to Amazon and is stepping down as CEO. Is what happened during the pandemic, because he came under a lot of criticism from the employees. Employees were not allowed to wear Black Lives Matter mask at work because they have a uniform, if you will. Employees were upset about when they had hazard pay that went away after the beginning of the pandemic. And what really kind of tipped John Mackey over the edge, and he talks about it, is where workers were getting the excessive unemployment benefits that far outweighed in some places what they were even making at the store, and they just stopped working and never came back to work.
Let's talk about this. These excessive unemployment benefits, first of all, I think that's an exaggeration. My neighbor was on unemployment during that time. It wasn't excessive per se. Why weren't people coming back to work? What was happening at a lot of these companies during the pandemic that made workers say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to come back? Let's see. You had managers, you had CEOs who were already exploiting their employees. They were exploiting their employees even more. For people who had these jobs where they were considered essential employees during the pandemic, and depending on where you lived and whether or not your state was shut down or not, my state was shut down, you had to risk all of that and still go to work, wear all your protective gear that you were required to wear. And then people were working longer hours than before. They were overworked even more because of everything that was going on around them. So why would they want to come back to that employer? Now, I got to add this in here because this is another mistake I keep hearing people make. Well, I don't think it's a mistake on their part. I think they know what they're doing. Most of the people
Oh, we had a sudden freeze. And right in the middle when she was making a good point. All right, we'll see if Sabby gets back to us. That tree's at it again. I will, let's see. Oh, yeah, I'll take the time to show this one up. Thanks for Bad Cookies noting, talking about the episodes. Although you're off by one, Bad Cookies. It's 11 demands. Come on now. But, all right. Let's hope she gets back in a second. Oh, yeah, we had a couple of chats here I think we liked. This one from Stephen R. The rich do not have to mix with the working people, even during their food shopping. Yeah, they don't really like to run around with the peasants too much. And I like this one from Yasmin, saying that they act like it's entitled to want safe, fair working conditions. Oh, you decided to come back.
I'm back. Oh, boy. The intermittent thing is annoying. I just put it back on mobile hotspot. I can't but the only thing is I can't do, well, I guess it can do it if it lets me log on.
I can try to run it some too. Oh,
Yeah,
there
it might be
is.
easier if you do that, Eric, because I can't have too many things open with the Wi-Fi. Okay, sorry guys, I'm back. I can't wait till it's a tree issue. We have like the tree branches on the thing, and that's why we're having that problem. Okay, anywho, back to what I was saying. A lot of those people did not come back because of the way that they were being treated there at the job. So that's why a lot of those people did not want to come back. It was not just because of the benefits that they were receiving, but people telling those stories will have you believe that. Now, there's another clip here that I want you to hear, and this is from Professor Richard Wolff, where he actually had a debate with the Whole Foods CEO. Now, there's this thing called Intelligence Squared debates. Eric, if you can put that up on the screen. There's this show called Intelligence Squared Debates. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but if you want to see like an actual debate per se, not the whole debate me bro trend that goes on YouTube, I recommend watching Intelligence Squared Debates because they actually do have. These are the kind of debates that I had when I was in high school. Like it wasn't like debate me bro. It was more formal like this, right? So us at RBN, we actually tweeted this out and it says, in a debate discussing capitalism versus socialism, watch Professor Wolff remind Whole Foods CEO John Mackey exactly who he sold his company to. And if you can, go ahead and enlarge that and play that, Eric.
John decided to take the millions or billions, I'm not sure, that he could have taken, like most CEOs do. He decided not to, and he decided to do something else with it. His personal decision. His alternative, if he didn't want to get paid all that money, would have been to lower the prices at Whole Foods, and everybody else would have saved the money that he is not taking anyway, and that would have distributed much more democratically what it is he chose not to take. When you distribute income and wealth in a highly unequal manner, so that some people get the vast bulk and the rest of us don't, you're leaving the power of the purchasing overwhelmingly in the hands of a minority that shapes what gets produced. That's the question of whether you are free or not, to use their language, or you live in a society that skews who gets produced, what gets produced, because you're giving a disproportionate amount of the income to a tiny portion of your population.
That would be true if we had a monopoly, but we don't. People can shop wherever they want to. That's capitalism. There's competition.
You sold your company to a monopoly. You know that.
Question here, in front of the camera.
I'm sorry, it's funny. Eric, can we go back to the beginning? I'm gonna chime in for one part here.
John decided to take the millions or billions, I'm not sure, that he could have taken, like most CEOs do. He decided not to, and he decided to do something else with it. His personal decision. His alternative, if he didn't want to get paid all that money, would have been to lower the prices at Whole Foods, and everybody else would have saved the money that he is not taking anyway, and that would have distributed much more democratically what it is he chose not to take. When you distribute income and wealth in a highly unequal manner, so that some people get the vast bulk and the rest of us don't, you're leaving the power of the purchasing overwhelmingly in the hands of a minority that shapes what gets produced. That's the question of whether you are free or not, to use their language, or you live in a society that skews who gets produced, what gets produced, because you're giving a disproportionate amount of the income to a tiny portion of your population.
That would be true if we had a monopoly, but we don't. People can shop wherever they want to. That's capitalism. There's competition.
You sold.
Okay, this portion right here where John Mackey said, that's capitalism. It's a free market. He's bragging about this, but this really isn't a bragging point. He said that's all about competition. The competition is a big part of the problem. This is why we end up in a lot of these situations that we're in now. It's just like people like John Mackey think that because he did well under capitalism, that the rest of us should fight to do the same. And you cannot have that in a capitalist system. You can't have it because there's always going to be people at the bottom who are exploited. So Richard Wolff is about to go into a great point here. So let's go ahead and play that part.
Sold your company to a monopoly. You know that.
Question here.
That was a good one. So yeah, like Richard Wolff had to remind him that he did indeed sell his company to a monopoly. So what was he even talking about? I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Give me just a second. Johnny says, yep, competition should be only with oneself. The rest is ridiculous. Too many losers then. Oh, I think I may have frozen again. Let me check something really quick. Okay, we're going to go back to... Okay. Yeah, I'm here moving around. I'm just waiting to see if my thing changes. Still says you're on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we can hear you, but
I'm still on Wi-Fi.
But you're frozen. Let's see. We got from Weed
Turned off the
Thinking.
Wi-Fi.
When you promote Google, you only
So I should just be
Monopoly.
on.
You're on at the moment.
Okay. Okay, yeah. All right, I'm back on regular now. We'll get through it tonight, guys. I'll get this fixed tomorrow. All right, so that's the point that we're trying to make. Like Richard Wolff is trying to explain to him that like, well, no, you actually have it backwards. Like that's not the right way. And it's true. As long as you have capitalism, people are always going to be on the bottom. There's always going to be someone who's exploited. Now, I want to go ahead and really quick, I do want to get to this last story. I'm looking at the time too, because I know Better Call Saul series finale comes on tonight at 9. So I do have a hard stop at 8:30. But I do want to go ahead and go to this next discussion here. And this is with Max Blumenthal and RJ Esco. And they here are going to discuss what's happening right now globally in terms of people uprising, not in the United States so much, but internationally, how people are starting to push back against the elite. And there's some great things said here in this discussion. So definitely check this out. Eric, you can go ahead and start that one.
One of the signs of shift in the global mood that I see around us is, for example, there's a rebellion in Sri Lanka. The president fled the country. There's a farmers' protest in the Netherlands. I could name other uprisings and revolts we've seen in the past few months, but it seems to me this may be a sign of people responding to forces as diverse as war, climate change, impending economic collapse, or maybe I'm reading patterns that aren't there. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, you wouldn't be the only one reading patterns that aren't there. I mean, everyone from the economist to the German Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser, has warned of radical protests. That's the German Interior Minister's words, coming this fall and winter as a result of fuel shortages and food shortages due largely to the proxy war in Ukraine, which I consider to be a war of choice by the West, which chose to provoke Russia. But before we get into that, it's important to play off this nature analogy you used. You know, whenever there's a massive wildfire, you see the animals come running down from the hills. They have this innate ability to survive, and they understand when they're threatened. Here, what we have across the world, or in much of the world, are the plebeians, the people running from their elites, who are the real threat. They're realizing that they are the real threat to their survival, and that their elites are in many ways operating in lockstep, enacting policies that.
This is exactly what I want to see happen in the United States. I want people here to start to run away from the elites. It's not happening. It's not happening because the media that we have here has us focused on left versus right, instead of us being focused on the class issue, instead of us really paying attention to the economic situation in this country. Now, why is that? When you look at some of these other countries like Sri Lanka, where the people rose up, kicked the prime minister out of his house. When you look at some of these other countries like the Netherlands, where the farmers just said, I'm done. Sorry, bye. The difference there is that the people have realized apparently a long time ago that it is important that they have a quality of life. And in this country, it's more about an individual mindset. It's more about individualism here in the United States. And I've noticed it, and I've lived abroad, and there is a difference. Here, you are on your own. If you go to some of the countries abroad, you will see they care more about community. So if people in the community are struggling, they'll work together as a unit and say, hey, all of us need to work together and come together on this. And if you look at the recent protests that happened, I think this was in, not Peru. I forget. I know I did the story on it. I was talking about Panama, the recent protests that happened in Panama. It didn't start as a class issue. It actually started with the teachers. The teachers started protesting. And then the construction workers decided, hey, we're being treated unfairly too. And before you know it, more groups were added along the way. And then it became more of a class focus. But they still came together. We can't do that here because people keep us focused on the political game. And we have been so propagandized in this country to believe that if you're not doing well financially or economically in this country, it is your own fault. No matter where you come from, no matter if you were born into poverty or anything, it means that you didn't work hard enough, that you didn't try hard enough. And that's why you are where you are today. That's the problem. What we have in this country, that mindset. Meanwhile, the people that we should be focused on, the elites, they run everything. They run everything, and we are just merely exploited. And then you have people just above us who are puppets, and they're puppets for the billionaires, the millionaires. They're puppets for the elites. They do their bidding, and all of us at the bottom are constantly exploited. That's the problem. And as long as they keep us focused on Donald Trump, Democrats, Republicans, most people won't wake up to this and see it, even though they feel it financially, even though they can look at their bank account and see something's not right, even though they can see that they're constantly getting into medical debt and they can say, hey, this isn't right. But because the people here are so propagandized, and I truly believe the American people are heavily propagandized, because that happens, most people will blame it on a Democrat or a Republican instead of the wealthy people at the top who happen to be Democrats and Republicans who are controlling everything. Let's go back in, Eric.
Are antithetical to the survival of humanity. In Sri Lanka, you had two policies enacted. I mean, there were so many other things the Sri Lankan government did which were just due to sheer incompetence, stupidity, greed, and corruption. Taking massive amounts of Chinese loans and then spending it on useless projects that didn't serve the population, and then having China tell them at the end of the day, sorry, we're not going to forgive your debt. That's one issue. But two things Sri Lanka did, which are being pushed across the West. Number one were pandemic lockdowns, which devastated its tourism industry, cost over 200,000 jobs, eviscerated what would be considered the middle class in Sri Lanka and cut off much of the economy. Besides those jobs, all the ricochet effects that tourism has on the economy were completely eliminated. And then its government declaring that Sri Lanka was going to become this green paradise and eliminate fertilizer and implement organic farming across the board, which got it high ratings from environmental NGOs and multinational institutions and wound up spawning a massive food crisis. You have the same thing happening in the Netherlands now, where farmers are shutting down large parts of the country because they actually have the power to do so. They're the producers, because they're being told to essentially stop farming. They're not being given any incentive to stop farming. They're just being told to stop because their fertilizer creates nitrogen, which goes up into the atmosphere and is supposedly very damaging, produces a ton of carbon. And these are mostly small farmers who will be supplanted by much larger farmers and lab-grown sources of food. And the way that they see it, and the way that their advocates see it, is that they are being victimized as part of a larger global plan put forward by institutions like the World Economic Forum and their partners in the capitalist Davos elite, who want to simply eliminate farming itself and put in place, bug food, essentially like artificial meat that includes crickets. That there is a plan to replace them with a kind of not a global food production system that doesn't serve any sovereign or country. And it's the same spirit that informed, I think, the truckers' protests in Ottawa and the United States, where government bureaucrats were implementing policies or
Yeah. So one thing I want people to understand is that even though the elites are very powerful, we actually control the production. We are the ones that do the labor. So what?
All right. I think some billionaire froze up Sabby again. Let's see. We're getting through this. Yeah, one of the points I think she was making is a lot more of us than there are of them. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I just switched on mobile hotspot, so it won't probably hold for too long, but we'll see how it goes.
I think you were talking about how there's a lot more of us than them.
Yeah, I'm still looking at this to make sure it's not okay. Yeah, there's a lot more of us than them. And so this is how something like a general strike could actually work, right? If you get to that point. And I think that he's going to go into the part about the truckers, and we remember the whole trucker protest and everything as well. I know some people didn't agree with what the protest was about. That's fine. You don't have to agree with what it was about, but that strategy actually can work. When you shut down the trucks, when you shut down the ports, when you shut down the docks, you shut down transportation, you stop the goods, you stop the production, what were they going to do? What are they going to do? You see, the farmers in the Netherlands, they knew that. They knew, hey, we could just shut this all down right now. And that's what they decided to do. Those tactics actually work. It is a lot stronger than electing someone for president. That is more powerful than voting. Believe it or not. Not saying you can't do both, but let's be real. Look how quickly something like that can work. You shut it down. Now, we did a summit last year over at RBN called the General Strike Summit. We got a lot of flack for that because we were educating people about why we need a general strike. Some people lost it, mainly liberals. They were like, we can't do this. We can't talk about this. Why? Because you guys continue to want to keep people going to the voting booths and convincing them that that is how you're going to change things in this country. Look at the movements. The civil rights movement wasn't accomplished through voting. That was a mass movement of direct action and protests and boycotts. So we need to find those people who were from the civil rights era, those people who were, civil rights era, the women's movement, the women's liberation movement, actually. We need to find those individuals, those activists that were a part of that. We need to ask them and pick their brain and ask them how they did it. I think that's where we need to head. And I say that because what they did was successful. And at the time, it was not considered to be popular, but they did it anyway. And they actually accomplished something. So I would like us to do that. That is something I really want to work on. Let's go ahead and pull that back up, Eric. And we'll go ahead and start.
What they would call technocrats implementing policies that had nothing to do, that were not protecting their public health, were actually harming them, stripping them of their individual rights, and eroding the Constitution, or in Canada, the basic rights, the Charter of Rights enshrined under actually a liberal government headed by Pierre Trudeau, whose son stripped them of those basic rights in extra constitutional fashion under the banner of the pandemic. I went out to earlier this year, and I have a documentary up at the Gray Zone about it, a short documentary about 20 minutes long, about the U.S. truckers, the People's Convoy that gathered outside Washington, D.C. I would call it a failure. They failed for tactical reasons. They were basically parked in this muddy field in Hagerstown, an hour outside Washington, but I got to go and interview them. And what they were really concerned about was not necessarily a vaccine, a COVID vaccine. They were concerned about emergency law being used to erode the Constitution. And what they were demanding, their key demand, was the end of the emergency declaration issued in May 2020. And I thought that would be something that actually many liberals who believe in constitutional rights, individual rights, and democracy would support. So what we're seeing here, and we haven't even gotten into the Ukraine war, is a faction of, well, in Sri Lanka, it's different, but in the West, you have people who are producers, or they're shipping the food. They have the power to do real damage to economies through their protests. And they are protesting what they see as the erosion of individual rights by a kind of radical center, which is itself guided by technocratic mandates and a series of policy prescriptions that are crafted not in capitals where there are elections and votes that determine the people behind those policies, but in a gathering place for the global capitalist elite, which would specifically be Davos. So they're called conspiracists. They're accused of spreading disinformation. I personally think that they are actually onto something, and I can elucidate that more clearly. They're also called far right, white nationalists, hateful, Nazis, and at the same time, their protests are spreading. They will spread, and we could possibly see martial law in parts of Western Europe by this winter as a result.
Let me draw a parallel, or try to draw a parallel, and see what you think. And give me a second to kind of sketch it out. Recently, there were some stories around the author of a very popular novel called Where the Crawdads Sing, which I haven't read and don't intend to, but she spent some time in Africa with her husband, and the husband apparently was implicated in the murder of a poacher. He was a conservationist, and the poacher was poaching elephants or something. And I knew something about it. I'd been in Africa several times, and I had, seen something of the anti-poaching movement, which was basically, it's a good cause trying to preserve, wildlife, rhinos and elephants and so on. But there is a collusion between the people who are trying to survive in these countries and then Westerners and other elites who come in to preserve the animals with the cost of the livelihood of the people who live there. So this is not a matter of conflicting local values. It's a matter of elite values, which many of us will be sympathetic to, versus local survival. And I also did a piece around that time, 2014, about Thomas Friedman writing about Mozambique and sort of cavelling, for lack of a better word, about Mozambique's ambitions to be an eco-friendly economy at the same time that it, I believe had the poorest standard of living of any country in the world, and so on and so on. So you have this kind of collision of elite values that sound good and high-minded. Meanwhile, people are starving and dying and so on. So I think what I'm trying to get at here is these high-minded values that everybody can get behind, but the people who are paying the price for it are working people. The people who are expected to sacrifice are the people who are suffering already, while the people at Davos and, maybe at foundations and think tanks and elsewhere with six-figure salaries or more are coming up with wonderful plans and being airlifted into these countries for thousands of dollars a day. You got what I'm driving at, right?
Oh, that's a great.
I want to add something there to what RJ was just saying there. He has a good point. It's true. The people who will suffer and struggle are people who are working class, people who are poor, people who are already struggling to begin with. But people who are wealthy, like he's saying, these six-figure salaries, like elites, and I'd go even more than that, but the wealthy people, they will not struggle in this situation. If things get to be a little too difficult to bear, they also a lot of times have resources where they can leave and move somewhere else, go to another state, another country where they don't have to deal with this. They can just up and do that. Most of us can't, right? Most of us, if things get really bad here, we're kind of stuck where we are. So when people say comments like, if you don't like the way that this country is, then leave and go somewhere else. Well, no, because not everyone can just up and leave. And for the people who can't afford to do so, I still think they should have a life in this country where they can actually have a living wage and they don't have to suffer. And so to say that people should just go somewhere else, which the rich people, they can do that, just keep in mind who you're talking about when you say that. When you make those comments, you're really talking about the wealthy people that can afford to just uproot their life, their self and their families and just move to another country. They don't have to have a job lined up. Do you think it matters if people like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, if things get bad in the US and they're just like, okay, I'm going to move somewhere else? You think they got to sit back and think, oh, I wonder if I'll be able to afford housing there. I wonder if I'll be able to find a job. No, they can go wherever they want. And it's not just them. You have other billionaires, even millionaires, some of these celebrities, they can do it too. You know who's going to be left? The 99%. We're going to be the ones that are left here. And so when things go south, and they have been going south, and it gets too difficult to bear, we won't have the option or may not have the option to leave and go somewhere else. So we need to try to fix the country. We need to try to fix things. So I don't buy the excuse that if you don't like it, you should just move. Moving costs money, and rich people can just leave whenever they want. Let's go back in, Eric.
It's a great analogy. And we should also interrogate, especially those of us who come from the left or more progressive backgrounds, should interrogate whether these plans that seem well-intentioned actually work, and why the people who are most victimized by these sweeping policies that are crafted in incredibly undemocratic fashion see them as Malthusian. They see them as some aspect of population control. Why do they think that way? Can we just dismiss them as conspiracy theorists? Consider the emergency declaration in March 2020, which gave way to the lockdowns and quarantines and school closures in the United States. There are study after study showing the Johns Hopkins University study, University of Munich study about Germany's lockdowns, which were much more intense than those of the United States, that they did absolutely nothing to slow the spread. What we do know, and this you can just open up yesterday's edition of the New York Times to see the toll that these school closures took on poor youth going to public schools who are deprived of schooling, is that they did enormous social damage, may have killed tens of thousands of people. A new UNICEF report, I believe it was UNICEF, it was a UN.
And I think I'm going to end on this note here because I'm looking at the time. Let's talk about what happened with education under the pandemic. Max brought up a great point. By the way, if you want to see that full interview, it's on RJ Esco's channel. It's called The 0 Hour. Definitely check that out. Let's talk about what happened with education. It was really interesting, I think, to hear some people make these comments that just send the kids home. They can all learn remotely. Not thinking about the fact that not every child lives in a home where they can go to their own room or even have their own bedroom where they can sit down in front of the computer and learn with the teacher and talk on Zoom, not realizing not every child has that privacy that they could do that. And guess what? Not everyone even had like Wi-Fi that they could use to sit online for 8 hours all day. They didn't think about that. And that really said something to me. It was like, this is like a class issue here, because the people who were making those decisions have those resources. They have, reliable internet connection. They have reliable Wi-Fi. Their kids have their own bedroom where they can just sit in their own room and completely just zone in and focus on Zoom for 8 hours a day. Their kids have a laptop. They weren't thinking about the kids that live in some of the rural areas here in Massachusetts that, number one, didn't have good Wi-Fi connection. They weren't thinking about the kids who are poor or come from working class families where, again, they may be sharing a bedroom with a brother or a sister, sometimes multiple siblings. Now you're asking all four of them to sit in the same bedroom and learn remotely with the class? See, they didn't think about these things because they don't have that experience. It didn't affect them. It didn't apply to them. They didn't think about the fact that I saw kids going into a closets to learn on Zoom, going into closets in their house to learn on Zoom, because they don't just have a mom and a dad that lives with them. Sometimes it's their mom, their dad, their older sister, a cousin, a grandma, a grandpa. You see what I'm saying? They didn't understand that. So for kids who were coming from low income families that were coming from poor neighborhoods, they struggled during that time when they sent all the kids to work from home, to study from home remotely and not come into school. Those kids struggled. Those kids underperformed. You try sitting in a room with 4 or 5 of your other siblings. All of you were supposed to be on laptops doing Zoom class at the same time. First of all, and that's assuming that every single brother and sister has their own laptop. So it said something to me about the mindset that people who are elite, per se, they really do not understand how working class and poor people live. And sometimes, particularly here in places like Boston, they think that because they go into Roxbury or they go into Dorchester and they go to a restaurant there, they think all of a sudden now they understand. That's not how it works. If you're not living that life, you don't. You really don't know what that's like. Do you know how frustrated some of those kids were constantly over the fact that they couldn't connect to the internet, constantly dropping out of the call, constantly having to go back in? By the time they figure out what's going on, that portion of the class is already over and they have to try to catch up on their own. Also assuming the fact that these kids would have somebody home to supervise them, to tell them to get up and do their work. Again, people who are rich, they could hire a nanny. They could hire a babysitter, someone to come in and watch their kid and make sure they do what they're supposed to do. But what about the kids who lived in those homes where it was a single parent and they were working 2 jobs? There was nobody there to tell them to get out of bed and get on your Zoom for your classes. So those kids underperformed. So I'm glad that he brought that up. But yes, the case in point I want to drive home with this tonight is this. A lot of times we are fighting against the wrong people. We're fighting against people because they're on a red team or a blue team. What we're not fighting against are the people who are controlling both of those teams, the owners. Kind of like a sports analogy here. Think about it in a sports way, right? If you have the Boston Celtics and you have the LA Lakers, you have players on the team, but there's also people who own the team. And the people who own the red and the blue team, it's not me and you, although it should be, because they're supposed to be public servants. The people who own those political teams are the people at the top. It's Wells Fargo. It's Goldman Sachs. It's the billionaires. That's something that Bernie Sanders was 100% right about. That's what we need to focus on. And this is why I continue to bring up the class issue, because I really want you to understand that at the end of the day, if you are poor, it does not matter if you're on the left or the right. You're still poor. If you are rich, it does not matter if you're on the left or the right. You're still rich. Always remember that. Eric, we'll take these comments on Rockfin, and then I got a skadoodle. I got to scoot out. All right. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin, Dave. Bert, people are seen as disposable, awful, the so-called elites, I think. Some will rule the day. Because the horse in the past, the gate now, the genie is out of the bottle. Because it's gone too far without interruption of movements now happening. But the demands need to be way expanded. Thank you so much for that, Dave. And I got a couple comments here I want to shout out. A non-user says, we do it all. They just take the cash. We're doing all the work. Bad Cookie said, real question here, Sabby. Political climates were different back then. Do you feel we could repeat what they did and have the same success? I think we could if we don't focus on red-blue game, if we just focus on like labor, just like with Amazon, right? When Chris Malls went out to try to start the first Amazon union, he wasn't focusing on whether or not those people were on the left or the right. He was just trying to start the union. So if you look at the labor aspect and not so much focus on red-blue game, there are going to be people that come in, though. Some of them will want to do that. Don't let them change what you're trying to do. Nightwolf said the elites can now use law enforcement agencies to freeze your bank accounts because of Democrats, neoliberals, centrists, liberals, and progressives. Ouch. It's true, though. Bad Cookie says Ted Cruz is a perfect example. When shit hit the fan, he ran away. He ran just like all the elites will run when this country goes to shit. That's right. They'll be gone in a heartbeat. James Collins said, I'm late. I just subbed today. Welcome. And thank you. Jay says there's not one billionaire who didn't step on a million necks to get it. Right? Yasmin says, exactly, Sabby. When your child misses school for a period of time, they criminalize the parents as well. It's always this animosity towards the poor. That's right. That's the thing. And then they'll blame the kids. They'll blame the students. It's your fault. You didn't try hard enough. Not thinking about the conditions that they're in. So, guys, that's it for tonight. Sorry for the Wi-Fi issues. Sorry. I do have to head out, though, because I do have a standing appointment. So I'm sorry I can't hang around too much tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night. Shout out to Roger Meadows for the super chat. Hold on, I'm cooking up something on Rockfin. I really have to go. I'm sorry, Roger. I'll have to read it tomorrow because I like I said, I have a standing appointment. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow. Join me then. Should be a fun time. And I do have a couple of guests coming on this week as well. So stay tuned. All right, guys. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.